everyone, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy at TV. In case you're not a subscriber yet, please do subscribe. Just press the subscribe button as well as turn on the notification bell so that you can get notifications when we upload our videos. Don't also forget to subscribe and join, follow, like our other social media platforms. Of course, you're seeing it right about now. Don't also forget to share this video across your platforms. Enjoy the video. All right, welcome back to the program. Like I announced earlier on, the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole Mfr, is joining me right here. There she is. Good morning, Dr. Oduwole.
Morning, Nancy.
I'm Dr. J, so I think I should just go back to factory reset. Welcome, Honorable Minister, to the program. I think let's get started with what happened on Sunday.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's a fresh place to start. Speak to us about what that was about. UNDP, Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Uganda Airlines and all of that. What really happened and what are the implications of that event?
Yes. So Sunday was a historical day for Nigeria and for Africa. Sunday was actually 25th of May. Yes, which is Africa Day. Now, we've been collaborating with UNDP, supporting private sector. Organized private sector negotiated a flat rate for air cargo with Uganda Airlines, which is a government-owned airline. So with government of Uganda, working with UNDP, Uganda Nigeria office, and the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. Now, to concretize it, an exporter who used to pay $1,000 to ship goods by cargo is now paying $260. So that's a 75% drop in the charges. So between 50 and 75% reduction of costs. This is the operationalization of the AFCFTA. This is the promise. It's actually a campaign promise fulfilled by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, prioritizing intra-African trade, making sure that this corridor, we then topped it off with yesterday, launching a market intelligence tool, again with UNDP, that charts the course of where Nigerian goods are in demand in Southern and Eastern Africa. 13 countries, 13 locations, and all the information, the regulatory information, how to go about it, what is in demand. And so this is a practical support to the private sector. The private sector were really quite excited. It was 4 female businesses that went on the maiden voyage. The goods are already in Kenya. Another flight took off from Lagos yesterday. So a very, very historic and important trade corridor opening up for Nigerian exporters.
In fact, yesterday was Monday. When I took that report, of course, AIT was at the event there at the airport, International Airport on Sunday. When I took that event yesterday on the show, I got a lot of messages. And let me just say one. One of those was like, okay, 75% discount from, like what you said, 260. Can't it be lesser? So can you respond to that?
That is the job of private sector, to demand more. And competition works. We invited the ambassador of Ethiopia to Nigeria. We're saying, Ethiopian Airlines, where are you? Air Peace, where are you? Africa World Airlines, where are you? Askai, where are you? This is how African trade will grow. So the more the competition, Uganda Airlines now has the first mover advantage. And you can imagine they're working not with single businesses, organized private sector. So Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, NASIMA, NASMI, their members, WASIMA, taking advantage of this opportunity to move in mass. So you can imagine the volumes that Uganda Airline will begin to move in such a short time on this trade corridor. I don't think other airlines are going to want to be left behind. So competition drives down prices.
So competition will drive down those prices.
And from airlines, we're going to now start discussions with shipping lines and with land transporters. Rail, the objective is to make sure that intra-African trade, which is currently at about 18%, grows significantly.
Now that we're talking about trade corridor, that brings me to the question around your ministry and head of the ministry, what you're doing perhaps with Nigerian Customs, the Ports Authority and all of that, because those are serious bottlenecks to trade facilitation in the country. What have you been doing in the last few months to be able to facilitate better trade?
So trade facilitation, first of all, I'll start with Nigerian Customs Service, extremely supportive. The Comptroller General was at both events, Sunday and yesterday. They have advanced ruling. They have a number of initiatives at Nigerian Customs Service that speak to compliant businesses having fast track. And then Mr. President inaugurated the National Single Window Program. This is a project that has eluded Nigeria for several years, at least the decade that I've been in Abuja. I've been trying to fix that. And it's taken the political will. That project is now ongoing. Crimson Logic is the technical partner. They're the leaders in the world from Singapore. And we all know what Singaporeans' port is like. And so we've been working, the project is led by the executive chair of FIRS in his capacity as Special Advisor Revenue Generation. And so working with a number of key stakeholders like customs, like NPA, a whole bunch of, this is work that I've been on since I was at the PEBEC. And we're delivering the trade facilitation. There's a technical office with NSIA also powering that intervention. And it's a game changer for Nigeria.
How has it really been, translating the principles of regulatory reform? Because, of course, you are the champion of regulatory reforms. How has it really been to translating those principles and ease of doing business into the national trade and industrial policy? Because now the buck stops at your table.
It's really quite linked, it's really quite connected. So I continue to engage stakeholders in one of the key pillars that we work on, investment mobilization. Investment attraction is one thing, but as I've always said, it's predicated on investment retention, how the kind of attention that we give to the investors in Nigeria. So just yesterday, I was with the central bank governor, our teams discussing some of these issues that private sector has brought to our attention, to my attention. So from consultations, we had a technical meeting looking at how we're going to collaborate from both sides of the coin. So there's monetary policy, and you know that even the worst skeptics will concede that this economy has been stabilized by reforms from Mr. President and his entire team in terms of removal of subsidies, in terms of stabilizing the exchange rate. And so you've also seen a number of fiscal reforms that have been ongoing in terms of the tax bill, legislations, and trade is the third leg of the tripod. How our trade policy enables, how our business facilitation enables, how our investment attraction and retention. Just a few weeks ago, I was at the capital markets, the NGX, and these are some of the other discussions, portfolio investments, what we do with it, how it stabilizes our economy as we work on the more patient capital, foreign direct investment. So there's a whole bouquet of work that has been ongoing in the last few months. And I must say that the attention that the Nigerian economy is receiving from foreign investors is quite significant. We've also spent quite a bit of time speaking with domestic investors. In fact, we have a domestic investment summit at the beginning of July to cater to the medium-sized businesses and some of the issues that have been coming up from that demographic in a concrete manner.
Minister, how worried are you about the number of companies that have exited the country, at least within the last few years? Not of course when you're a minister, but now it's on your table in terms of, you talked about investment and retention, patient capital, but it takes the ease of doing business to be good and great for companies to stay.
Well, to be honest, Nancy, that tide has stemmed. So that was as a result of many things globally, including from COVID. Companies were readjusting their supply chains and their production capabilities. And so we saw a number of things that were, as you said, towards the end of the last administration and the beginning of this one. But it had a lot to do with also our macros, the foreign exchange, and then the stability that was needed. We're seeing much less of that now. In fact, we're seeing investors coming in, both in existing multinationals and newer ones trying to come in as well. So I'm not worried about that because you can see the Fitch rating. The perception out there, the NNPC reforms, the Investment and Securities Act, the tax bills reforms, there's so many signals to private sector. And you've seen there's a bit of a lag, but you've seen that the perception, and not just perception, in 24 months or less, Mr. President had raised $50.8 billion as of December of 2024, and tracking that, making sure that that comes in. NIPC is working on that also. So things are going well.
They're talking of $50 billion in terms of investment intentions.
Yes.
But we've not seen them concrete.
It's coming in. It's coming in and it's being tracked. So that's exactly the work of NIPC. Working with, the Brazilian investment is in. Several other investments have been coming in. And we're working on those regulatory and bureaucratic, legislative. But private sector are bullish about the Nigerian economy.
No, I know that they're becoming a bit bullish because I read also the purchasers, the Purchasing Managers Index, the Business Confidence Report.
You know how many businesses have registered? You should talk with CAC. Actually, you should check the empiricals, not even take it from me. Like, you're talking about big exits, but some of them, it's not as if those businesses are ceasing to exist. When some shareholders are exiting, others are taking up the space and injecting more investment.
Divesting, and local investors are taking over.
Not even just local. You have some maybe from India, you have some from other areas coming in and injecting fresh capital. Chinese injecting fresh capital. So that's another thing that Nigerians and domestic investors need to pay attention to as well.
How are you paying significant attention also to domestic investors? I heard you clearly there will be a domestic investors summit in July. But in as much as we encourage foreign investors, we should also encourage our own businesses to grow.
Certainly.
We have a lot of nano businesses in Nigeria. We have MSMEs, or even small businesses that contribute about 96% to employment, 84% of jobs. If you check their temperature now, they are not so good because they are the ones that provide the jobs to people. The cost of doing business, of course, Dr. Oduwole, is still high in the country. I anchored the World Bank Nigeria Development Update just 2 weeks ago. That's the World Bank polls report on Nigeria. And the MD of USC Foods was there. And he did bring in the private sector lens into our conversation. And from what we heard from him, private sector businesses in Nigeria are still struggling,
but USC is doing very well. Yes, I've also engaged with him, and they are doing particularly well.
But he actually brought the private sector lens to say things are not also too good. They are the ones suppliers of power, everything, cost of doing business in Nigeria.
Yeah, Nancy.
How are you taking all those in?
In spite of it, I'm not one to dwell on the negatives, to be honest, because I don't even want Nigerians to lose out on the opportunities that are for focusing on the negatives, without a doubt. But in spite of, you still have a lot of interest coming into this economy, and the reason is that the fundamentals are strong. Our numbers, our demographic, there's a lot to be positive about in this economy, and the more we get our productivity and competitiveness moving, the more things will continue to be better. Yeah, I mean, cost of doing business, there's infrastructure deficit, but there are other areas. There's digital trade, there's services, there's exports-led services, there's areas to really show competitiveness. AFCFTA is live. Nigeria is asked for the taking, really, to export all across this continent. So I want Nigerians to really see the opportunities that are on ground and take advantage of them. The policies that are in place, for AFCFTA, we have a central coordination committee to make sure that across the whole country, we're in partnership with NGF, the Nigerian Governors Forum, with the NEC, the Office of the Vice President, the National Economic Council. So it's really cascading to the subnational level as well. And all the agencies that are to deliver in terms of, you should know the phenomenal amount of work that NEPC is doing, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, in encouraging Nigerians and retooling Nigerians in export progress. And so we need to seize the moment. Everybody's looking to us, not just Nigerians. The whole of Africa is looking to us. Mr. President was commended in February in Addis Ababa for his work in digital trade. And we've been named digital trade co-champions with South Africa and Kenya, leading that intervention. The work plan of that, working with the AFCFTA Secretariat in Accra, is huge. Just in terms of digital public infrastructure, payment systems, Nigerian fintechs are leaders in payment solutions. Nigerian banks are all across the continent, and not just in terms of financial services, education, health. Nigerians are leading in all manner of services, and these are real forex earners. So there's quite a bit of opportunity that we have on the table. I don't want it left behind.
You talked about exports and perhaps the work that NEPC is doing. We do know, of course, we need to promote non-oil exports in the country, especially in the wake of this all man to himself now, this global trade war. What kind of wake-up call do you think that what we're seeing presently, the uncertainty around the world now, especially tariffs and all of that, what kind of wake-up call do you think that we should have right now?
The first thing I should say is that Nigeria is in a good place. Nigeria is in a good place in terms of the global demographics. We've done the numbers, we've looked at everything, and the amount of interest tells us, regardless of the headwinds, we're in a good place. That's the first point I would like to make. The second point I would like to make is that we have areas that we've identified. You just mentioned non-oil exports. So with agribusiness, with solid minerals, with infrastructure, with digital trade, these are areas that Nigerians can easily compete. So if I want to disaggregate the GDPs, over 50% services already currently. You talked about MSMEs, which contribute about 48% to the GDP. And so the other side of the GDP, you know that we've worked on platinum business champions, the businesses that gross over $1 billion per annum. And so I made the point of that middle cadre. And they are sort of the enablers. There's an ecosystem that clusters around those manufacturers, those businesses that kind of scale. And we're trying to encourage them to be bullish, to go out in the continent, to export more, use Nigeria as a base. And so that cascades through our economy to make sure that it creates more jobs, productivity, competitiveness. So that's really the approach that we're taking. We've had a measured response. We've seen all the headwinds. Nigeria has had a measured response because we're sticking to our plan. Mr. President had already given us the mandate in the 8-point agenda. Number 7 is accelerating diversification. And this ministry, the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, is an enabler for several other ministries to exactly implement that mandate.
Let's talk about digital trade because you've mentioned it, and you're smiling now. You've mentioned it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I would like us to take a look at how we will get, the benefits from digital trade. Of course, that around digital trade, you have digital commerce and all of that. Beyond even the talk of digital trade, about building digital infrastructure.
So digital public infrastructure is an area that we've already, I mentioned the National Single Window. It's a technology solution. Ministry of Interior, you've already seen things like payments with the central bank payment solutions. For Ministry of Interior, you see the passports, e-passports. As a government, we've already started infusing a lot of technology and automation into the work that we do. CAC, several of them. And so that in itself helps us to leapfrog where our harder infrastructure, which we're also doing quite a lot in terms of roads and rail, broadband, power. And so with digital public infrastructure, it also helps as a catalyst, particularly for those smaller businesses, identity solutions, things that help us in terms of planning and tracking. And so that work is ongoing. Even for the keenest skeptics would have to admit that there's activity and impactful activity in this area. Now, why do we champion digital trade, and why has Mr. President taken this on as an area? It's because it's an area where Nigerians are competitive, young Nigerians are competitive. They're already doing phenomenally well. About 50% of the unicorns on this continent are of Nigerian extraction, and not just fintech, which we're clearly Africa's leader, but also edutech, health tech, and then that's just in terms of technology. I've mentioned services also. If you look at the amount of investment attracted to the continent, about 60% of that for technology comes to Nigeria. And so this is an area where we invest, we'll see the benefits. We also have the National Talent Export Program, which was inaugurated by Mr. President in 2023 on the sidelines of hunger. I'm just repositioning that program. It's outsourcing of business services. And so Nigerian demographic where we're located, the time zone, the English-speaking young population that are tech-savvy, that are entrepreneurial and able to self-manage, can earn a productive wage. I'm not talking about baseline jobs that are going to be vaporized by AI, but a productive wage in terms of paralegal services, accounting services, graphic design, things that can actually earn, I mean, of course, it goes without saying, software engineering and all that, and they can earn these wages, they can do their work while living in Nigeria. And so that's an area that we're prioritizing. Yeah.
Um, Earlier on this year, I heard you say, I read that you also wanted to fully automate your ministry by the end of this year. How's that going?
We're working on it. So we
Okay.
have the support of the Jumoke Oduwole Foundation. They've done it for the Office of the Head of Service. So it's not like it cannot be done. There are other ministries on it. Ministry of Transport, I believe, has gone quite far. So the Head of Service has a project, and the deadline for the government of the federal government is actually the end of this year. And we just started in January. But with the help of our partners and commitment of the ministry staff, I just left all my directors. We have a top management meeting every 2 weeks. And I just left that in the hands of the PS to come to this interview. And we're working, we track ourselves both on the Central Coordinating Delivery Unit deliverables, which is on Mr. President's dashboard, and also the deliverables that we've set for ourselves. In the middle of January, we announced our 2025 outlook, and we've been tracking ourselves on that. We also had our ministry retreat. We were the first ministry to have a retreat in February of this year. And just last week, we were hosted by Lagos State for our National Council, where we met not just as a ministry with agencies, but also with the commissioners of commerce from across the country. So we're moving in tandem, we're focused, and we're delivering.
You're delivering?
Yes.
So you're scoring yourself, Dr. J.
We have the figures.
Please send to me.
We have the
So
figures.
that I'll look at it.
We have the figures,
We
and
should be
Mr.
the ones
President has the
scoring.
figures.
Okay.
No, we have the figures.
Okay.
With the benchmarks that we set ourselves,
So-
we have the figures. It's not like we have delivered everything, but I must say that that ministry is making progress.
Talk to us about, I have to come to a very sticky point, which is trade policies, because trade policies are often, uh, conflicting, especially in the last few years in this country. What steps are you taking to really streamline Nigeria's trade policy framework for better investors and exporters' confidence?
Well, Nancy, I would say that that's probably in some ways, I would take it as a fair comment. I believe that part of why I got this appointment was because of my trajectory as an international economic lawyer. And so looking at trade policy technically is what I've been doing since day one. So upon appointment in November of 2024, that very week, Nigeria was being assessed, its 6th review at the WTO. This happens once in 7 years. That delegation was led by the permanent secretary, while I went to Addis Ababa to present and to clock in for Nigeria at the AU for AFCFTA implementation. And so we got all that feedback from the trade policy and have used that with the enlarged national focal group, which is being reformed and repositioned to look at the direction. We're also not a defensive government. When the USTR released its annual scoring and looked at Nigerian economy, we took that. And I knew from PEBEC, some of those things were actually fair comments. So we're not defensive. We have our plans for working on those things. And in terms of our bilateral negotiations, we're in negotiations with several countries at the moment. Some I've kind of put on hold. Some I've looked at, prioritized. We've been talking with the UK government. We have more talks later this year with the US government. Even before Liberation Day, we had already been in conversations. Next month, we have a commercial investment partnership, and we've been in meetings planning for that. So I would say that in terms of the kind of excavation work that nobody sees because it's quite technical, we are on track. We are on track. We're looking at our traditional strategic relationships. We're also building relationships with new friends. And when I say building relationships, these are agreements, government to government, bilateral trade agreements, commercial partnerships, SEPAs, bilateral investment treaties. And so there's no shortcut to the negotiation. We're rebuilding the negotiation team, strengthening it, I'm the chief negotiator of the country. The negotiation team consists of Ministry of Justice, the Nigeria, so many technical, in addition to the Department of Trade, the Department of Investment, NOTN, a lot of other agencies are involved, the CBN, customs, very vibrant. So the work that the public and civil servants do, people don't always see it, and people look for the headlines and the sound bites, but what do our public and civil servants do every day? This is the technical work that they're doing, and they have a lot of experience in this area, and now they have the thought leadership to make actually the impact that is needed.
So, Minister, what I can hear you say is that perhaps there are plans to modernize and renegotiate perhaps some of these bilateral agreements.
They're ongoing, not
They are
plans.
ongoing.
They're ongoing.
Making new friends too. But
Yes.
while you're also doing that, to ensure that investors' attraction is there, not just even investors' attraction, retention, while protecting national interest. How are you going to balance all of that, especially in the kind of world we live in right now?
That's why you have to prioritize, and you have to know that this is what. So really, you can't even leave any. So in terms of investment retention, we're engaging with private sector all the time. When we see issues, they write, they come, we meet. We also have sessions, focus groups. I know a lot of the challenges anyway, coming from PEBEC as I'm coming from, but putting a timeline of how to deliver them, it's rigorous empirical work, and you have to track it or it falls through the cracks. So that's one thing. I don't believe in reacting, because many things and many headwinds. I believe in responding. And when I've already set a trajectory with an outlook document at the beginning of the year and set out, okay, for investment mobilization, this is what we're going to do. The first thing is investment retention, and what does that mean? And then investment attraction. Specific, you can't boil the ocean or eat an elephant. So you have to identify who you want to talk to and why. Some of those I've discussed here. For trade policy also, a lot of tidying up was needed and coordination. And we've done quite a bit in the last like 200 plus days. And then for exports, you know, at the beginning of the year, I also started with the free zones and just overhauling that area. That's linked with the tax bills, and we're waiting for the completion of the tax bills. But there's some regulations that are being repealed. And then also the incentive structure. There was a FEC, I beg your pardon, subcommittee on the incentive structure of the free zones, because there's some distortion with the domestic market. So all this work, in addition to our strategic communication and making sure that we are targeting acceleration of the diversification of the economy, which speaks to exports, and we have our eye on what is competitive. So for instance, in agribusiness, if you've been following, you know that cocoa, we've been working very hard on cocoa. We've seen the prices. In fact, now
And the prices are high now.
Yes, they're high, and we have to make sure that we are involved, especially with value addition. Sesame, that's another sesame seed. Our exports to Japan, our exports to China, we've been very bullish on making sure that we have zero rejects. So you have to target what is important and then start following up on them technically. And that is the work that the government, the public servants and the civil servants, that's the work that they do. So just that coordination and putting a timeline to the urgency, to the prioritization, that's how the work actually gets done.
Are there some commodities that you're really focusing on?
Oh, yes. I've just listed
Yes, I
a few
know.
of
Apart
them.
from cocoa,
yes.
sesame, are there
There's
some
cocoa.
others? Because every morning here I talk about Brent crude, and when I get to the agricultural commodities, my heart sinks a bit.
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
oh, cocoa, because this product gives us even more than a barrel of crude. You have a lot of
I can send you the list. We're good, you know, we're good. We're also good with ginger. Well, ginger had like a bit of a blight in the last couple of years, but there are specific cowpea. That's another one where we're good.
How about our beans? I hope they are not being rejected anymore.
Beans is not one of our sort of top exports, but it's one that Nigerians in diaspora feel very dearly about. So it's also, every product is really important, but I'm telling you sort of the cash crops now. We also have we have about 44 commercial solid minerals. So a lot of attention now with all these devices to our lithium, our lead, you know, we have also other non-oil exports like fertilizer, urea, lead. So the Nigerian economy is quite diversified. What we're trying to push is the exports of it.
Value addition.
Value addition and exports, yes. So exports with value addition to be able to get more foreign exchange that is needed.
Jobs.
and
For us
jobs,
here.
productivity. So that's it.
Dr. Oduwole, let's talk about market intelligence tool. What does that mean?
Okay.
How does
So,
this platform,
so we worked with the
help
UNDP.
exporters? What is it
Yes.
about?
Okay. So a market intelligence tool is just exactly plainly what it says. How do you get the information in another market that you're not there? So this market intelligence tool has mapped 13 countries in Eastern and Southern Africa and has identified what Nigerian goods are in demand. And this is a project that was done in collaboration with the UNDP specifically for MSMEs. So for instance, our snacks, like plantain chips, are really in demand in these countries. Our cosmetics, really in demand, textiles. So businesses are not just hit or miss, are not just, let me try this market, let me try that market. They have the information already done for them to show them, and then they can now make B2B connections and trade. So rather than a shot in the dark or just trying to, okay, where should I go in Africa? We did a digital survey as well to find out where Nigerian tech businesses are moving. So we even saw that 5 top countries, they're trying to expand to Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa, also have a high interest in Egypt and Rwanda. So that gives anybody watching that wants to think of, okay, maybe I should think of where to go, what to do. So with our food products, value added, and our textiles, our fashion, the wigs, the cosmetics, the snacks. These are things that are in demand in those countries, and businesses will earn foreign exchange. So if a business is a member of a registered, credible, organized private sector, Wasima, that's the female subsidiary of Nasima, NASME, MAN, they can just through that channel access this flat rate. I know that one of those organizations is already in talks with another airline. Yeah. So you see how the competition, you see how the volume grows. By the time, I wouldn't lie, I was really gratified and excited. I felt very, very good when an exporter, she was so happy that from $1,000, she's now paying $260. That means she's freed up over $700 to do other things, to inject into her business, to expand, to send more goods, to produce more, to create more jobs. So it was very, very fulfilling for us as a team to see that we could actually deliver this kind of impact. And we wouldn't stop here. That corridor will be opened. We're also looking at, we already know what is on the Western and Central corridor, and so working on that as well. And then the logistics, the cost and the movement and the information. Who are the regulators? What is the timeline? What does it need? Those are the enablers that these businesses need from government, and we're really, really ready to support them.
So how do we ensure that the enablers don't become the disenablers?
By continuing to work on it, by continuing to talk about it. As many people as talk about NAFDAC, I will still reach out. As many people talk about SUN, I will still reach out. So
Ports
continue
Authority.
Yes, continue to. We continue to work on it. It's progressively easier. So that's it. So I like it when private sectors say, yes, this works, but give us more.
So
yes, this works, but give us more.
Are you saying that perhaps private sector is at the center of policy design now? Because private sector, even in the past, have always said, oh, government will do its own, then we'll just hear the announcement. They don't take us along.
No. Nancy, I've led PEBEC for, that is not, right? The design thinking is completely different. That's why the stakeholder engagements are so important. I know how many times I've gone on national tour of this country. It's not even a matter of waiting for businesses to reach out to us in Abuja. And so we continue to have that. The Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment has stakeholder engagements, advocacy, trainings all across the country. We have offices all across the country in all the zones, and we have projects that cut across. Projects that's specific to certain commodities. So we have a commodities export department, we have the trade department, the investment department, we have the industrial department. So it's a big ministry, a lot to do. And I think that communication and clear communication and people knowing what it is that we do and how we do it is important. The business climate and regulatory challenges will continue to be there. There's no economy in the world. And so it is how we respond I'm not one to react. Like I said, I rather make a list and say, this is what I'm going to tackle this year. I announce it at the beginning of the year, and let's check at the end of the year, how far have I gone? And I think that is a fair way to work with Nigerians. The list of what to work on, to prioritize, they know where the shoe is pinching. So it's very important to listen and to engage and to have agility to adjust as things are going. And with the central bank, with the Federal Ministry of Finance, with other ministries across the federal government and with state governments, with regulatory agencies, we continue to work on making Nigeria a progressively easier place to do business.
The question now will be around how does subnational competitiveness, state level reforms play in your investment and even trade strategy? How are you engaging with state governments on these issues which you've mentioned? Because when investments are coming in, they are coming into various states. Everything doesn't end in Abuja. Everything doesn't end in Lagos.
Nothing is,
So how are you engaging with subnationals on this? Because even these raw materials you're talking about, or even these cash crops that could get us more money than oil, are located in different states. Cocoa, for example, in the western states are not, or there's oil palm too in the east and all of that. So how are you engaging with state governments on this?
We engage very well. I just told you that we had a national council and the commissioners of commerce were represented there.
So when are we going to start seeing the impact of these engagements?
But you're already seeing it. It's not as if the engagement is the beginning and then there's going to be an end. For the last how many years I've been engaging with state government.
Yeah.
Last year, the representative of the chair of the Nigerian Governors Forum was at the event, and they also have what they're doing. That's like the dissemination. And so with the NEC, the engagements are ongoing. There are different projects in different states. Different states are prioritizing different things. Our host last week was Lagos State Government. They prioritize a lot of fishery. They prioritize a lot of coconut products. They had their hub. Their hubs came to display what they're manufacturing, and they said some of their challenges in terms of whether it's certification from whatever agency. So it's not like there's a start to the engagement and then you continue to engage with private sector and with the regulators and the agencies and the state government. So it's a continuum.
Okay, Dr. J, we've been talking at least for more than 30 minutes now.
Okay.
How does this cascade to an average Nigerian listening to us now and say, what are these people talking about? What are these two ladies talking about? All this English in the last how many minutes? Explain in basic terms what you're doing at the Industry, Trade and Investment Ministry would affect an ordinary man. I can imagine what they say, how would this put Gary on my table? The president's 2 years is just a couple of hours away. What do you have to say about that?
I think perhaps you need in this chair one of the businesses that has enjoyed. In fact, if you had, so for instance, Le Look was one of the businesses that exported on Sunday. If you have a 75%...
She does, I think, bags.
Bags,
bags I
yes.
think.
If you have a 75% cut in your cost of logistics, that puts jobs, food, everything on your table. It gives you more injection of capital. It gives you liquidity that you can do other things with. So I believe that those who know the reforms, and that is why I'm here today, so they can know, and those who act on the reforms benefit from the reforms. But if anybody sits, there's nothing that can help you from to put food on your table if you're sitting there on your table. Like if you're out and you know what's happening and your mindset is open to understand what is happening. If you want to export under AFCFTA, just reach out to Nigerian Export Promotion Council. They will help you. They have advocacy, they have trainings, they even do online NEPC Connect, which is a webinar. And so if you want to know how do I start, join a cluster, join a hub. Wasima, for instance, that's the women's group of Nasima. They are doing big things. They're doing big things. And those women are coming together, strength in numbers and strength in the information. So I make shea butter cosmetics. The shea butter pipeline, I know the organization of shea butter producers in Nigeria. There's actually a female-led organization, and they help each other with standards. So I know how do I handle it, how do I treat it, how do I get it to be export quality. What a lot of people don't know is, okay, I do this, how can I get my chin-chin to Nairobi in Kenya? So to know that, You have your chin-chin, do you have your NAFDAC certification?
No.
Go to NAFDAC. Son, okay, now I want to export. What are the things I need to export? Nobody can just come and force it down your throat. You have to do the work of finding out what are the regulations in place. Who has done it? Don't try to do it alone and make mistakes that you don't need to. Join a business organization. They will help you. LCCI in Lagos, OPT, whatever it is. MAN, they have all manner of branches. MAN has an export group. I'm talking a lot about export because that is our priority. But in terms of whatever it is, the Nigerian market is also pretty big. And you don't have to sell all your products where you live. So you can even sort of, within Nigeria, you can produce somewhere and send, and you don't have to focus on Lagos. You don't have to focus on Abuja, Port Harcourt. You don't even have to focus on the big cities. So how can you move your goods from point A to point B and demand? So it's also us educating our businesses, advocacy, the courage to trade, the courage. Nigerians have it. Honestly, Nancy, Nigerians have gone ahead of their government. They were in Namibia just last year. They sold out to the extent that I know someone who, the dress she was wearing, she had to take it off and sell to, they didn't let her come home with her clothes. That is Nigerian fashion out there.
Okay, and I think that is why this program is very important, because this is what I do on every weekday for you to know. So thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and thank God we landed on that point, because at the end of the day, what does all those things that we've been talking about mean? It means that you also have to go out there and seek for information to be able to move your business forward. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for coming.
You're welcome.
All right, I've been speaking with the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, and we've been talking about unlocking Nigeria's trade potential as well as investment. That's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can rewatch, of course, this interview later tonight, 1 a.m., of course, the repeat version. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. I'll see you all again bright and early tomorrow. Bye for now. Thank you for making it up to this minute watching the video. Thank you all. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. Like, follow all our other social media platforms where we keep you up to speed with fantastic interviews, as well as markets, personal finance, business, and economy information. This is the best place to be. I'll see you all again in the next video.